Hey you, yes you, see all these wonderful people right here? They are my Patreons. With the support I get from them, I can afford to do my passion as a career and bring you guys weekly videos. Want to join them? For just $1 a month, you can get videos 24 hours before anyone else. And for even higher tiers, you can get Polaroids, letters, and mystery boxes from me to you. And even fursuit parts, not to mention my eternal thanks. So what are you waiting for? Become a Patreon today via the link in the description. Thanks again, enjoy the video.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Final Cut, the show where I answer your most pressing questions about my most recent tutorial video. This time it was my how to do lining and eyes step of our new head tutorial. All the questions I'll be answering today have been left by you guys down in the comment section on that video, so let's get right on into it. Okay, so the first question of today is from Sun Hello, who asks, so would it be easier to cover the head with cling film if you're taping it, or do you find it not to help much? I have a bit of an issue with using cling film on fursuit heads because I find that it cannot get the same, it won't grip the foam as well because you're adding something that's going to not sit in your seams or really wrap your head all that tightly. When you use cling film, your end result fur pelt that you make to put on your head won't actually fit as snugly as it should, and then your risk of wrinkles and all of that kind of stuff. So I personally don't use it, and I don't really recommend people to use it either, especially just for heads mainly. Like if you're doing other things like a foam tail or whatever, that's less important, but for heads I definitely recommend not doing that. The next one is from Questionable Kumquat. He said, would it be possible just to put a balaclava on the mannequin head and then glue that to the base and cut holes to the eyes and mouth? That's exactly what I did in my old tutorial. That's not what I do now because the finish isn't as clean, and I'm showing you guys what I do now, and that is make a custom tailored lining. Yes, you can do that. You can just reuse that step from my old tutorial and then combine it with the new ones from this tutorial if you like, but personally I really cannot go back after learning how to do custom lining because it just looks stunning and feels stunning to wear. Alright, this next one comes from PP Check, who asks, what materials should you never use to line the head? So materials you should never really use to line the head include things like fleece, minky, anything that's warm. So for example, if I grab minky, for example, this is soft, it's fluffy, it's very warm. You want to have something that's going to absorb your sweat. Other things you should never use felt. So felt you should never use because it's warm and it's not going to help you keep cool in your fursuit, thus causing you to produce more sweat and kind of be a bit nastier inside the head. You want to use things that are going to help you keep cool. So lycra, scuba knit. So generally you just want to make sure you have a fabric that's going to keep you cool, not hot. Blue Firebrush asks, does the duct tape only work with a specific foam? When I tried it, it ripped my foam off. So we actually figured this out because I have never ever in my whole 7 years of making had any issue with duct tape ripping off foam. And we figured out why that was. My maker friend just moved to Canada and your duct tape over there is really sticky. So what I'm actually going to be recommending for you guys to tape up your heads is PVC duct tape. So it's kind of like electrical tape. If you've ever used that, it's very similar, but it's a duct tape thickness. That's what I use for my heads, personally. Cloth back stuff doesn't really work as nicely in my experience, just because it's a bit of pain in the arse and it's really sticky. But the PVC duct tape, it's sticky, but it's not too sticky, so you shouldn't have any issue with it getting off. Just make sure that you remove it the same day, because that kind of material can shrink and expand when heat changes happen. So if you're going to use it that day, and make sure you take it off that day. But that is my recommendation, the PVC duct tape. Samson, one question I had is, sometimes hot glue isn't that strong under a lot of stress, so I was wondering if you thought maybe a different glue-like construction adhesive would work for gluing the foam together to get a stronger bond. Look, I just made this TikTok. Yeah, let it speak for itself. That used normal hot glue. Unless you are literally towing your car with your fursuit head, I guarantee you once it's furred, and if it's furred properly, it will not be an issue, my friend. I don't know how much stress you're planning on putting your fursuit under, because it's still pretty firm. If I rip it, it rips the foam rather than the actual glue itself. So the actual foam is less strong than the glue, so using a stronger glue wouldn't actually change the durability of the suit. So hot glue's fine, just make sure when you fur it properly. You just close up all your seams. The Astral Goat asks, any tips or tricks for how to know which piece goes with which when reassembling the pattern, or is that just something you learn over time? So I used to trace it onto my head, and I still recommend if you're learning that you do that. So when you cut it off, when you cut off one piece, say I'm missing like the muzzle piece, I'll trace it around where the tape ends so I can have a basically outline of where each piece goes on the head afterwards. Nowadays, to prevent any pen from staying on the foam, I just kind of reassemble it. I take a couple of photos actually, so like when I finish it, I'll take like 2 or 3 photos from all different angles so you can see where all the pieces go, and then I'll use that as a guide to reassemble. You'll eventually get the hang of which piece goes where over time, sure, but otherwise just use references with photos or drawing it on the head base. Amy Bracco asks, do you recommend making darts for later assembly? I've seen makers doing it. Have you used them? I have never had a personal issue with reassembling and knowing which bit lines up with which, but if you find that you do, then I recommend darts 100%. I use them for my bodysuit, help with that reassembly, and I'll also use it for things like the head carry cases that I make, and anything that's not necessarily obvious to me where it goes, I will definitely use darts to help me figure out which goes where, and you can definitely use that too. For people who don't know, darts are when you have 2 pieces and you draw lines along the edge of the piece to let you know where to reassemble it. And that's how that works. Finally, the YouTube debater asks, hey Sky, for the plastic around the eyes, is it possible to use hard felt instead? Yeah, you could definitely use hardened felt. My concern would mainly be that it wouldn't be stiff enough, and I'd be worried about it warping over time, because when felt gets wet, it can essentially stretch. Stiffened felt is usually stiffened by a glue or something like that, so I'm not actually sure what the chemical properties would be, so I can't actually guarantee that that won't soften and warp, so it means that you'll have like bendy bits around here. You're more than welcome to give it a go, but I can't guarantee that it won't change when you wash it. The water would be my main concern. But yeah, the plastic is definitely what I recommend. You can just cannibalize it from anywhere, really. Like just any office supply store, just use some of the folders, they're great. But anyway, thank you guys very much for watching this episode of The Final Cut. The next tutorial video is going to be furring and shape, well yeah, just furring. It's going to be a detailed furring tutorial on how I cut my fur pre-shave, assemble it, and glue it on the head, ready for the shave and final finish, which will be the last episode of the series. So I cannot wait to see you guys there in the next couple days. See you later. Bye-bye.